What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Rick from The Lion's Daughter. Thank you for being here, man. Great to talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Sorry about the scheduling mishap, but we're here now.
Yeah, we're here now, and that's what matters, and it's great to be able to talk to you because we have the brand new album Skin Show coming out very soon. Is this was the intention of this album just to make like a direct continuation of what we heard on Future Cult, or is this almost kind of like a new start for The Lion's Daughter in a way?
You know what? It's more of a continuation. Usually in the past, we've kind of looked at each record as a new start and kind of like, oh, let's try to reinvent and do something different. But I think Future Cult was the one where we finally nailed, after almost, I think, 10 years as a band, we finally nailed whatever it is that we were and would define us. So we just kind of thought let's take more or less the formula that we came up with there and just kind of refine that rather than breaking it down and trying to recreate everything again.
Mm-hmm. Could the first single that you released, Neon Teeth, almost serve as like a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is that just the tip of the iceberg for Skin Show?
I think it's just kind of one flavor of 10, but I like the idea of putting that one out there first because it's one of the most straightforward songs. And in general, the album is kind of stripped down from what we did on Future Called. It's a lot more direct and focused, I think. And there's probably a lot more of using traditional song structures as well. But Neon Teeth is definitely one of the poppier songs that are on the record. So I kind of liked the idea of throwing that out there first, just to kind of see how people would react and like, all right, if this one throws you off, then you might not be along for the ride on this record.
Mm-hmm.
If you're into it, if you're open-minded enough to deal with, disco beats and maybe clean singing and stuff like that, then cool. You might be into the record.
Was there kind of like a preconceived? Oh, sorry, I'm echoing. Was
You're
it? Yeah. Was there kind of like a preconceived idea of what you wanted a Skin Show to sound like, or is there kind of like for the making of every Lion's Daughter album, almost kind of like a lot of improvising involved and whatnot?
Usually, it's something I discover what the record is as it's being written. Usually, if I have something too clear cut in mind, it never works, and it kind of comes off as contrived, which is kind of the problem I have with some of our earlier stuff. I can listen to it anyway and go like, okay, that really wants to sound like Neurosis, or that really wants to sound like Dark Throne, or whatever we were kind of referencing. Right. Typically, there's not. There might be kind of an intention going in. But no, it's kind of, I think in the beginning of, to get super metaphorical, I think, in the beginning process, you kind of choose a path that you want to go down, but you don't know where that path is going to lead or where it's going to zig and where it's going to zag and where exactly you're going to end up. But, that first decision you make, you could, you do choose which, if you want to walk through the forest or you want to walk through the desert or you want to walk through the mountain, whatever it is. So yeah, it's a little of both.
Mm-hmm. Does like inspiration or ideas for songwriting like come out of the blues sometimes? Like do inspiration like sometimes strike at like inconvenient times, if you will?
Sort of, yeah. So there actually, it's the title track on the album. The song's called Skin Show. That was one of those moments where I had just bought a nice bottle of Bullet Rye, and I poured myself a glass, and I had just gotten this poster in the mail that's like this old poster of these two women in like fancy clothes that are sitting in what looks like a spa together drinking wine. Just a really strange poster. I was like, oh, I want to hang this up really quick. And then I looked over at the synthesizer and I started noodling with something, and 6 hours later I had a whole song written. Like it just kind of came out like that. And I'm sure whatever my super important plans were with that Bullet Rye, they could wait anyways. But yeah, sometimes it's just things strike you at odd times, and you got to kind of recognize them when they do, and grab a hold of them, because I've never been someone really that can sit down and be like, okay, at 2 p.m. today, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a song. Like it never works like that. You just can't force it out. You just kind of have to wait for it to come to you. And it could come to you in strange ways, like just hanging up a poster and staring at something and an image inspiring you.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's gotta be. Does that get a little bit stressful though sometimes? Because there are every artist, especially when you're signed to a label or something like that. There's deadlines you gotta meet or something like that. But like you just can't feel the inspiration. I had a discussion with my tattoo artist one time where she said that if she only tattooed every time she was inspired, she wouldn't pay her rent. You know what I mean? So like, is there a time where
Oh,
maybe
for
you
sure.
feel like you have to like look inward and dig it out just to make something happen?
Luckily, we're in a situation where that's not something we have to do. We could have, I mean, I'm sure we could have waited another 2 years to do another record, or longer, and it would have been okay. Because Future Cult, I think, we were only able to tour on that for um, a little over a year and a half before COVID hit and all tour plans for 2020 got canceled. So really, we could still, in the future, still go out and promote that album if we wanted to. We wouldn't necessarily need something new out there. But I honestly can't imagine writing under that kind of pressure. That seems like it wouldn't be fun. And I think really a lot of kind of subpar albums could be explained by that being the case. By label pressure, or just the artist feeling like they've got to get something new out there, or whatever, and putting out something that's maybe a little uninspired.
Hmm.
But yeah, we're lucky that we're in a situation where we kind of, our record label lets us do whatever we want whenever we want to do it, and it's an ideal situation for sure.
Yeah, huge shout out to Season of Mist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Now, is there ever a time where maybe like lyrics or maybe a subject matter or a concept can influence the direction of the music, or has there always needed to be music before lyrics or stories come in?
Yeah, I'm music before lyrics always. 'Cause usually the music will dictate what the lyrics become. I've never sat with, I've never sat down with lyrics already and like, oh, here's a line and I need to make, music around these words, or whatever. I know there are people that do write that way. It's a completely foreign concept to me, though.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean everybody's writing process is different. I don't consider one to be better than the other.
However you get it done, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, but like when you look at the entirety of the Lion's Daughter catalog, when you look at, Shame on Us All versus like Existence is Horror versus Future Cult and Skin Show, do you almost like kind of like look at these albums as like self portraits or like representations of who you personally are at the time?
Um, that's a good question. I've never really considered that. I don't think so. Um, if anything, they're just uh, different parts of myself, or just different worlds that existed within me that I discovered and then put out there. Um, but yeah, for the most part.
Well, I've always thought that your music is like fairly experimental. Like I've always thought that there are many different elements. Like I don't think that like I can't criticize the Lion's Daughter for sounding too much like the Lion's Daughter. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Sure.
every song has many different elements and everything. So like, do you would you say that trying new things is almost kind of like part of the songwriting for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've tried before to sit and write a song that was like another song I'd written before, and it just never works. Where you're like, oh, this song was cool. I want to write a song that's that similar vibe. Well, why bother, man? That song already exists. I think the same way for full albums. Why do Existence is Horror again, or Future Called again, or whatever? Like we've already done it. Let's experiment and find what's next and find something new. You know. doing it any other way seems like it would be uh, tedious, boring, unfulfilling.
Yeah, yeah. You need to explore uncharted territory in order to keep keep the project interesting.
For sure. And I mean, you could go. I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to do anything where we go too far and put out like a polka record or something. Actually, maybe we would put out a polka. We'll gradually get to polka.
Polka.
But yeah, I mean,
All
that's
right.
why we, after the first thing that we did after Shame on Us All was we did a collaboration with Indian Blanket, who are a folk group, because that was just a completely those were uncharted waters to us. It was a completely new idea, and didn't know what the result would be. So after that, Existence is Horror was kind of like an ugly. It was kind of an ugly time, like a really good friend of the band's who did sound for us often had just died, and so that record just became really ugly and angry and dark, and it was just kind of represented where we were at the time. So then it made sense for the next one, like, okay, let's finally fuck around with synthesizers like we've always talked about doing, and see if we can figure out the logistics of that and what kind of doors that could open. Um,
Yeah, and
and after figuring that out, then with Skin Show, it's like, okay, now that we've figured out how to do that, let's see what happens if we really, really focus on the actual songwriting. And yeah, so it's have something different every time. I think, I think is pretty crucial.
yeah, and it's allowed you to tour with different bands as well too, because like you've played with like Misery Index, but then you've also played with like Goblin or something like that. So you're able to kind of like play with very heavy bands, but also play with more like experimental bands and more like
Yeah.
indie rock bands and stuff like that. Have you noticed like different types of audiences depending on like who you've toured or played with?
Uh, it's weird because I think the audience that we probably should go over the best with, being kind of the metal, black metal, whatever. That's usually the audience that likes us the least. I feel like they're a strangely closed-minded group sometimes. But yeah, I mean, we've done everything from touring with like death bands and grind bands and stuff. But we've also played with like a Wilhelm scream and like punk rock bands and done well. We've played with hardcore bands and done really, really well. For some reason, like I don't know, hardcore kids seem to really like us and seem to be strangely open-minded when they're not beating the shit out of each other. But yeah, I was so looking forward to that. Goblin tour got canceled a total of 3 times. It got canceled the first time, health reasons, with one of their band members, and then it was rescheduled for 2020 and got canceled. Got rescheduled again for 2020 and got canceled. And who knows at this point? But I was really looking forward to seeing how we would go over with that kind of crowd, because I thought if there's a crowd that was going to get it, it was going to be the Goblin crowd, because Goblin are one of my absolute favorite bands, and if there are people that are going to get what we're doing with our weird, mashup of like metal with synthesizers and horror movie scores and all of these influences and weird artwork and all this stuff, like that's going to be the crowd to get it. So I was really looking forward to seeing how we would go over on a tour like that. But maybe 2021, maybe 2022, maybe it'll happen one day still.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're fortunate that we can kind of play with any. We've opened for Lamb of God before and did really well with that crowd, which surprised me, because there are a lot of fucking morons, honestly. At least here in St. Louis, it's a bunch of rednecks that are at a Lamb of God show. So to see ourselves go over with that crowd and not just get their homophobic slurs thrown at us and glasses and whatever else, I was really surprised.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits. There are a lot of downsides to being a little bit of a weird band like we are, but one of the benefits is we can kind of play with anybody.
And I think you're always going to leave an impression on people too. Like it's one thing to like see. Look, there's a lot of opening bands that I've seen on tours that are great, but they're not memorable. Like, okay, yep, if you like this headlining band, you'll appreciate this band. I see where they're on there. But I feel like when a band is obscure and really stands out, like for instance, I remember Three Teeth was opening for Rammstein, and like
Yeah,
nobody at that time really knew who Three Teeth were. Like it was before they signed to Century Media, before they really became who they are. And then like after they did like a few select shows with Rammstein, everybody knows who they are, and like they're playing with,
sure.
they're like a regular band you see on tour now. So I think you are able to leave a permanent impression if you play with like a Lamb of God or play with a hardcore band or play with a black metal band. I think casting a permanent impression is more important whether they like you or not.
I agree. Yeah. I would rather be the David Lynch movie that people leave the theater arguing about versus like Captain Marvel or something that nobody remembers ever watching. You know what I mean?
That is the best quote ever. That is the best analogy quote ever. Like that needs to be when people go on your Facebook page. We would rather be the David Lynch movie that you
Right.
argue about than Captain Marvel. That needs to be your quote on your Facebook page
Okay.
description.
I'll remember that. I'll use that again later.
Yeah, and uh, and that leaves me. I have a couple more questions for you, but
Sure.
because like playing with different bands, you mentioned that that's always really good, and I've like I said, it always leaves permanent impressions. But is there maybe a similar energy into playing live as you do when you're songwriting, or do you consider playing live and songwriting two completely separate arts altogether?
Um, that's another good question. It's weird now because the way we used to write, we used to get in a room together and I'd come with riffs and ideas and we'd work them out, and it was all about what felt the best to us to play. It wasn't so much about what it was like to be on the other end and listen to it. It was like, do we like playing this? Is this fun? And I think that's why, nothing ever lasted more than four measures, and everything, was kind of all over the place because it was fun to play. Where now the way that we write stuff is I just write stuff here at home. And it's more me listening back to what I think works and what doesn't. And then the last part of the process is getting in a room together and playing it. I mean, on Skin Show, some of the songs, most of the songs, the first time that we played them all together was in the studio because, we recorded during COVID and getting together wasn't the best idea. So it was just, it was a different kind of songwriting process, but it made more sense for me to just sit down and map everything out at home, and then we'll get into the studio and we'll work it out. And I think that creates a little bit of a different listening experience because I'm then writing it as an objective listener rather than the subjective guitar player that's actually playing the stuff then.
Yeah. So maybe like in the future, like you could experiment, like do like a split EP, one where you wrote completely in isolation, and then wrote where you wrote recording as a band, and see if people know the difference.
Right, right. Yeah. So the stuff that we used to, the stuff on those earlier records that you're hearing, that's exactly what it felt like playing it live as well. It was more, especially like the Shame on Us All stuff, or the split that we did with Fister, or any of that stuff. That is just straight up like, we're in a room, throw some mics up. It's raw, and it's exactly how it felt playing it live. This newer stuff, I don't know. We'll see, how it feels, but yeah, I'd say for the most part, the live energy should still be the same as the record. I mean, sometimes I think if anything, the live energy should be higher. I think maybe things are a little faster and a little louder because you've got an audience in front of you that you want to keep engaged, and you're also trying to keep yourself from getting bored and stay keep yourself entertained. But
Yeah, which I don't think anybody's gonna have that problem when shows return after this pandemic.
right, right. It's funny that I saw recently. I met some friends for lunch somewhere at kind of like a bar and grill here in town. I don't go out often, but I went there and they had a band playing. Because it's kind of like a kind of a bluesy place or whatever, and they had a band playing, and I haven't heard live music in like 9 months, and I instantly just wanted them to stop. I was so shocked at how much I didn't miss live music at all, but maybe I just didn't want to have to shout over some super shitty like blues cover band playing in a corner. But
Well, blues is one of those things where either if you're covering it, if it's not amazing, it's not good at all. So
I agree completely. Yeah, when it's like when it's a bunch of white dudes at 3 in the afternoon, I don't want to hear your blues, man. That's not the blues to me. But
yeah, if
uh,
it was hardcore and maybe throw like hardcore music while you're eating some good bar and grill food, I mean that sounds like a match made in
right,
heaven.
yeah. What does sound amazing though is seeing like I would love to just a few feet away from the stage, just a really good like straight up like Neanderthal death metal band, like something like Coffins or something, like just something just so loud and abrasive and crushing. Like I want to feel that power again. I miss that.
That new Gate Creeper album is awesome. So if you need some good,
I haven't had a chance to dig into it too much. I heard one song, I think,
uh,
because it's like an EP, right?
yeah,
That just came out. Yeah.
yeah, it just came out. People call it an EP because it's like I don't know if there's like a length limit to bridge something between an EP and a full length album. There's like 10 songs on it, but each song is like a minute long. So you know,
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the one song that I heard, I did think was really short.
yeah, yeah, because
It was like short and fast.
yeah, they unlocked their real like hardcore punk vibes behind it. So
Right.
it's cool when like a death metal band unlocks another part of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if every one of those 16-minute Nails albums are LPs, then I guess the Gate Creeper one could be as well.
Very good point. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and I really enjoyed the album. So it was great to be able to talk to you about it. Is there just anything else with the release of Skin Show, or anything else with the Lion Starter that you'd like to promote?
Well, first of all, likewise, and thank you for having me here. I don't know what I can even talk about and what I can't, but while we can't tour, we are doing other things. There are videos being made and sort of uh, not quite live stream videos, but some other stuff that we've got in the tank that'll be coming out. We recorded a really really cool cover song a couple weeks ago. I'm not quite sure when or where that's going to surface, but that'll be out there. Yeah, just say keep an eye on our socials and the labels and stuff, and more stuff will be coming out. I think in a little less than 2 weeks, another song will be coming out that has a batshit crazy video along with it that'll be out there. So yeah, cool stuff coming up, and then hopefully, I don't know, maybe by the end of the year we'll be on a stage again.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Rick. Everybody, The Lion's Daughter. Be sure to pick up Skin Show. Be a Season of Mist coming out very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.